أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, brothers. And this is Dawah for your level 4. And we are also in session number 4. So we looked at the reason for Dawah, why we should do Dawah, the definitions of this word Dawah, the difference between Dawah and Tabligh in terms of the meanings. Introduction, we saw some aspects of knowledge, seeking knowledge, and so on. We are in the phase of the virtues of Dawah, I suppose. We need to finish that today, inshallah. And then we will start with the pillars of Dawah. We said there are 3, simple and easy. The call, the caller, and the Mabu. Then like I said, I'll give you some tips or some, let's say some guidance, if you want to call it that, on how you can do Dawah in a structured manner. We'll look at that, some examples as well. And like I mentioned last class, please note down any difficult questions you may have in your mind, or somebody's asked you, you couldn't answer, or you felt the answer was not the right answer which you gave. Now, any aspect of Islam in terms of your Dawah process. And inshallah, we will have a special session just to discuss those questions and see what is the best way to answer such questions. Now, of course, you will have an assignment and a test, and the final exam. So there'll be a small test in the beginning. There's the assignment and the final exam. Barakallahu feekum. Okay, so we saw one foundation. We said we're going to give you 2 foundations apart from 3 principles. So you have 3 principles, and then we said we'll talk about 2 foundations. Da'iyah should keep in mind. The first being this ayat from Surah Yusuf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. The importance of following the way of Rasulullah in Dawah. And we said this is important. Why? Because A, he's our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was sent to guide us to Jannah. B, he himself was a Da'iyah, 24/7. That's all he did, calling people to Islam. And that was done based on revelation. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot do anything on his own without guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So that's the best example we have. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. So this ayat says that, say Ya Rasulullah to the people, that this is my way, I invite to Allah. So the important point we wanted to gather from this foundation is that the invitation, the da'wah, is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not to your personal self, it is not to a particular madhab, it is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Based on certain knowledge. So you speak, you type, you write, you discuss, you speak, have a speech, whatever, on certain authentic knowledge. Make sure what you're saying is correct. And this is the correct understanding of Rasulullah and the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. So we saw all of that last week or the previous week. We also said this act that we are doing, da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is an act of ibadat, is an act of worship, because we seek the pleasure of Allah through it, right? And if that is the case, there have to be 2 conditions for acceptance, which is the ikhlas, sincerity, the niyyah, the correct intention, and the manhaj of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we already talked about a while ago. So we were discussing last week virtues of da'wah. We talked about Surah Al-Asr last week, if you remember, that a da'iyah should have patience, because when he's calling to Islam, he will be provoked, he will be made fun of, he will be ridiculed, he will be harmed, he will be oppressed, he can be tortured, he can be jailed, he can be killed. So you need to have patience. Allah's mighty prophets were killed in the field of da'wah. So you and I are no different, right? And this is the way of the noble mission of the prophets. As we saw in this ayat in Surah Nahl, also last week. And we said people like you, the du'at in the field, and when I say field, I also mean social media and other channels, through which we can do dawah. And remember, we said last week there is a difference between, let's say, the method of dawah and the manner of dawah. Right? The method is the method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As you will see, inshallah, how he did dawah. The manner or the channel can vary. It can be verbal, it can be written, it can be giving a book, a pamphlet to someone, forwarding a hadith, anything can be a manner. Now, but the method has to be the method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using, not that he needs to use, but it is for our benefit. Now that we are being used to spread the mighty message of Islam, or the true authentic, to spread the message of the true deen and the only deen. We stopped there. The last point is again a virtue, or like they say, the carrot, yeah, because like you have it usually in the dunya world or the corporate world, they say, no, what's in it for me? Yeah, so okay, if I help you, if I lend you this money, what's in it for me? What are my returns? Yeah. This is the common thinking, thought process amongst people, especially because of the worldly life, and we are caught up so much in this chasing of dunya, that we also always, even when we meet someone, we get introduced to somebody, Salaam alaikum, alaikum salam, immediately you're thinking, how can this guy help me? How can I benefit from him? How can he help me rise up the corporate ladder, or benefit, increase my fortunes, or increase my bank balance? Automatically we're thinking that. This ikhlas is lost, that you're meeting a brother for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And subhanallah, Allahumma musta'an. So the common question that we think is, what is it for me? Why should I help you? What do I get in return? Right? So dawah, brothers, is one of the best investment that you can do. There is no investment quite like it. No bank in the world will give you the returns as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you when you call to his deen. What do I mean by that? I want to give you an example. There was an imam in the US, right? And he narrated this story. Someone mentioned this story. It is a real life case. So you have a college student, a university, in the United States, there are so many universities, and there was somebody studying in one of the universities. And usually the culture there is that, you have different days for different occasions, I don't know, Mother's Day, Father's Day, blah, blah, blah. So that particular day was a day for religion, yeah. So everyone had their own stall, a small kind of, an exhibition stall kind of a thing, where they were calling to Christianity, Judaism, whatever. So likewise, the Muslims of the university, the Muslim Association, right? They had also their stall, and they had a brother who was giving away copies of the English translation of the meaning of the Quran. Yeah, copies of the English translation of the meaning of the Quran. So he was standing on the exit from the university, and he was handing over these books to whoever wanted it. Some of them took it, some of them did not take it, some of this just walked by, right? So one particular student, right, who considered himself an atheist, he didn't really believe in any system or any worldview. He was, he thought there is no God, for example, yeah, atheist. So he is narrating the story to the imam. So he said, I was going out of the college, and I saw this student handing out some books. So I took one of the books, and he said, I used to travel by the, what do you call it, the metro, the tube, or the mass rapid transport, public transport. Usually in the United States, a lot of people commute using the trains and the subway and all this, yeah. So likewise, the student, he had to use the train to go back home. So he said, I was going back home, and then I thought, okay, let's see what this book is all about. What was the book which I got from this other student at the university? So he said, I opened the book. And usually when you buy a book, right, you go to a bookstore and you buy a book, you flip it around, you see the cover page, you see the back page. There's a small abstract about the story, maybe about the author, for example. Yeah, this is usually the case on how they publish or print books. So he said, I looked at the book and I turned it around. I looked at the back. I couldn't find the name of the author. So he's expecting it to be like any other fictional book. Yeah. He said, I couldn't find the name of the author. So I said, okay, let's open and read. So he opened the first chapter, which is Surah Fatiha. But then he said, I thought, who reads, what do you call that, prologues? And usually when you buy a novel or a fictional book, the first part is like a prologue, something about the author or something about which is not really important for the story. So he said, I flipped that and jumped to the first chapter. So basically what he is doing is flipping Surah Fatiha and heading directly to Surah Baqarah, which is the second chapter actually, but he thought it's the first chapter. So he said, I started reading it, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Alif Lam Mim, ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه. So this is the book in which there is no doubt. This is a book in which there is no doubt. So the person said, when I read that sentence, the first sentence, it hit me like a hammer. So he said, I was wondering, how can the author claim that there is no doubt in the book? This is a very, very mighty claim to make, a huge claim to make. Usually when you buy books, novels, whatever kind of books you buy, you will see that the author says, okay, if there are any mistakes, forgive my mistakes, or please contact me in this address, email address, if you find any errors in the book or omissions. Commonly, this is what we do, or we read. So he said, how could the author in the very first line say there is no doubt in this book, there is nothing wrong in the book? So he said, that caught my attention. And then I kept reading. Right? He kept reading. He said, I kept reading. Then I went back home, I read a while. And this continued for a few days. And alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided this brother to Islam. So this student who was an atheist or considered himself to be an atheist became a Muslim, came back into Islam. Not only that, brothers, he studied Islam. He became an imam in one of the masajid in the United States. Not only that, so he's an imam, which means he's now leading salah 5 times. He started teaching others Islam, others Quran, the local kids, halakha in the masjid, durus. Huh? Now he's spreading Islam. And wallahi, a copy of the reward of each and every good deed which this brother did who became an imam, each and every salah, each and every dars, each and every halakha he had, each and every child he taught the Quran, a copy of that reward goes to that first brother, the university student, handing out books, translation of the meaning of the Quran. A copy goes into his account. Automatically. This is dawah. So that first student was not even saying, he was not even speaking anything. He was just giving away the copies of the translation of the meaning of the Quran. And he is now getting a copy of the reward of this from this atheist who became an imam. So on the day of judgment, that student will come and he will see this huge pile of hasanat in his account. And he will have no clue from where it came. That is dawah. It is one of the best investments that you get. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for every deed that person you call to does. And his reward is not diminished. So that imam gets the same reward. And a copy of the same, it's like Control-C, Control-V, yeah? Copy-paste. The same copy of the reward without any lessening, without any diminishing. Allahu Akbar. No administrative charges, no bank charges, nothing. Exactly the same reward. This is dawah. As Rasulullah's hadith in Sahih Muslim, that the reward is cascaded by calling to good. It's cascaded. So that imam, he teaches somebody else, and that somebody else does something good, the imam gets a copy of the reward, and this first student gets a copy of the reward. That's cascading down the chain. Barakallahu feek. So this is the beauty of dawah. This is why we should be all doing dawah. All of us. Especially all of you students, because you're learning the deen. Tullab al-ilm, yani, this is some of your seniors. You should already have started doing dawah. And I'm sure all of you are doing dawah in some shape, way and form, inshallah. Tayyib. So Abu Hurairah, from Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, He said, he who called, meaning of which is he who called people to righteousness, there would be reward for him like the rewards of those who adhered to it, without their rewards being diminished in any respect. And he who called people to error, he shall have to carry the burden of its sin, like those who committed it without their sins being diminished in any respect. So the first part of the hadith we already saw. We saw an example as well, a real life example. The second part of the hadith, likewise, if a person calls to sin, so a person is smoking a cigarette and he has some friends with him around him and he offers them cigarettes. They refuse. Say, no, come on, try one. You will love it. So that person starts smoking. And he maybe calls somebody else to smoking. The first person who started it gets the burden of the sin right through the chain. Likewise, somebody calls to bid'ah, innovation. Mawlid, Ijtimai dua after Fardh Salah, for example. Any innovation. Thinking it is good. And that is why innovation is such a big major issue and very, very serious problem. That is why the people of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah and the people of Sahih Aqidah, they keep on discussing bid'at. Because the person who's doing innovation, he's thinking he's doing something good. The Muslim who drinks, the Muslim who commits zina, the Muslim who gambles, eats riba, he knows it is haram. And hopefully, inshallah, he'll come out of it someday. He will realize, Allah will guide him, or he himself is trying his best to get out of it, inshallah. But the person who's committing bid'at and innovations and calling to deviations in the deen, he thinks it is the deen. So where is the tawbah? Where is the realization? So it's more dangerous. And the person dies and goes in his grave, he's getting a copy of the sin from whoever is committing the bid'at which he called to. He's in the grave, he's dead, but a copy of the sin gets into his account. Sahih Muslim. So what is the ruling of da'wah? Who knows what is the ruling? We said there are 5 rulings in Islam. If you remember, yeah? What is the ruling, the hukum of da'wah? Please raise your hands if you have the answer. No? Okay, who can give me the 5 rulings in Islam? There are 5 rulings. Brother Rabi Sunjuk, Faddal.
Okay, da'wah is by Quran and Sunnah should be it's a must for every person, every Muslim who know at least 1 verse or 1 hadith. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi
Wasallam. So when you say must, you mean fardh, sah?
Wajib, yes.
Wajib,
if there is nobody can deal with it except him.
So we said we have 5 rulings in Islam. And these are fard, mustahab, mubah, makruh, and haram. So what is that? What is the ruling? Everything has a ruling in our life. Everything has a ruling in Islam. The scholars, Jazakallah khair, like the brother said, we have seen that already in some of the previous slides, that there is a great need for da'wah in the world today. And the scholars termed it as something which is wajib or fard, based on the ayat and the hadith from the Sharia, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hadith and in the ayat, in different places, the meaning of which, the general summary is that if you have been given certain knowledge, blessed with certain knowledge, and you do not call to it, there is a punishment of hellfire for this person. Likewise, somebody in the hadith, somebody who has knowledge and doesn't call to it, he will be riddled with the fire of hell on the day of judgment. So the scholars, based on all of these different evidences, they arrive at the conclusion that this the ruling for doing da'wah is that it is an obligation. It is wajib, it is fard, mandatory. Sheikh bin Baz rahimullah, he gave us a slide. He had the same ruling, but he gave a better explanation to it. He said that in a particular place, right, or area, or a city, or locality, whatever, community, if nobody is doing dawah, now it becomes fardh ayn. Each and every one has to do it. Because as we know, fardh can be fardh ayn or fardh kifayah, an individual obligation or a communal obligation. Now, so he said it has to be, it will become fardh ayn. But he said if some people are doing it, so you have like groups of people from the government or elsewhere, or organizations who are in the field of dawah in that particular area, city, or state, or country, whatever. Now it becomes fardh kifayah. So if some people do it, it is sufficient for the rest. But the rest also want to do it because they want the reward. Because the reward is immense, huge reward. I like the brothers, Jazakallah khair, even it is if one was, as Rasulullah said, "Walau ayah," convey from me, even if it is one verse. So all of us know, alhamdulillah, more than one verse. And opportunities present themselves, brothers, like we discussed in the previous sessions. You will see around you at work, at university, wherever you go to, now, within relatives, families, every day you will find at least one opportunity for dawah, definitely more, each day. But usually we ignore it. We let it go by. We don't pounce upon it. Because remember, we need the reward. The reward is huge. See, we should not think, brothers, that, okay, this guy, he is not going to do anything. He will not change. I know this guy. He's my cousin. He's my brother. He's my uncle. I know him from so many years. He will never change. A'udhu billah. This change, this word which we are using so pessimistically, so disappointedly, that he will not change. Change is not in our hands. This is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu unchanged. Khalid bin Walid radiallahu unchanged. You see? And these were people whom, if you see them before in Jahiliyyah, you will think, khalas, this guy, he can never become a Muslim. They were not only kuffar, they were enemies of Islam. They were actively fighting Islam. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them. So we should never think in dawah, never feel, this negativeness should not be there. Always think positively. Always. And keep these examples in mind. The examples of Umar bin Khattab, Amir al-Mu'minin, radiallahu an, Khalid bin Walid, for example, radiallahu an, and so many other examples. Abu Sufyan, radiallahu an. Till almost the end of the Medinan period, Fatah Makkah, as we studied in Sirah, he was a kafir. And not only a kafir, he was the leaders of the kuffar of Quraysh. So when he can become Muslim, everybody has hope. Everybody has hope. You see, the problem with us is we think that, this guy will not listen, or why should I do this to him? What if he doesn't like it? What if he takes it badly? Okay, he's my friend. What if our friendship gets affected? He's my cousin. What if he stops speaking to me? He is my whatever colleague. I know him since we went to school together. We went to university together. One of my best friends. And if I bring this deen and Quran and Sunnah in the middle, Sheikh, he will stop talking to me. He will avoid me, and I cannot live without him. I love him so much. He's a very close friend. Blah blah blah. Imagine this example. Let's say you're sitting with your family, having a picnic, one of those nice evenings or afternoons on the mountain top. So there's a mountain, and you're sitting on the top. There's like a park there, and there's a cliff. And let's say there is a sea below that. There's a huge drop from the top of the mountain. You're sitting on top of the mountain near the cliff with your family, having fun. The children are playing, having some sandwiches, juices, mashallah, enjoying yourself. Alhamdulillah. And suddenly you notice a blind man. How do you know he's blind? Maybe he wears dark glasses. He's holding a stick. And he's, using the stick, he's trying to find his way to avoid obstacles. So he's moving his stick around and walking. And he's heading straight to the edge of the cliff. One more step he takes, he's going to fall down and die. It's a very high mountain, for example. What will you do? Wallahi, what will you do? Will you say, khalas, this is my picnic, after a long time I'm having a holiday and I'm enjoying with my family. Why should I care about this guy? I don't even know him. Let him do whatever he wishes. What will you do? You will jump at him. You will shout. You will scream. You will run. You will catch him and pull him off the edge of the cliff. And you don't even know him. He's a stranger. What about your friend you went to school with, your college with, your colleague you spent the last 10 years of your life sitting next to him in the office? You have coffee together every day. You visit each other's houses. What about people you know, your cousins, your relatives? Wouldn't you want to help them? When you're willing to help a stranger, a blind man, and prevent him from falling to his death, wouldn't you want to help your cousins, your relatives, your colleagues, your office goers, your friends, and also have them enter Jannah with you, inshallah? So we should always have a positive outlook in dawah. Forget what the world thinks, forget what people say. Follow the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had a positive outlook. He never gave up. Every Hajj, every season, he would go to each and every camp in Mina and he would say, Qulu la ilaha illallah wa tuflihu. So the scholars gave two different rulings for this. It's either Fardh Ain or Fardh Kifaayah. And like we just discussed, our deen is not a personal affair. It's not something restricted to the masjid or to Eid or Eidain or to Yom al-Jum'ah, no. Or to Ramadan, no. If Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had thought that this was a personal affair for him, you and I would not be Muslim. So the kuffar, yes, they want us to think that this is a personal affair. They want you to keep your deen in the masjid. When you come out, act like us, behave like us, talk like us, dress like us, drink like us, dance like us, fornicate like us. But salah time, go pray and come back. This is not Islam, brothers. And definitely it's a da'iyah, you're not calling to this. It is a way of life. Inside the masjid and outside the masjid. In Ramadan and every other month. As the brother gave this example just now, Jazakallah khair, Rasulullah said, convey from me, even if it is a single verse. Why am I talking about this? One point of understanding this hadith is that all of us, alhamdulillah, know more than one verse. So we can convey. But the more important point, the scholars of hadith, when they explain the hadith, they say, the focus or the emphasis of the hadith is anni, convey from me. So make sure what you say goes all the way back to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Make sure what you say, Rasulullah actually said it. Make sure what you say is actually a sahih hadith. Make sure what you quote of the Quran is actually the correct interpretation of the Quran, as understood by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That is important. So the emphasis, the focus is convey from me. So make sure it is he who said it, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Make sure the hadith is sahih. If you have even a single doubt, a small doubt, don't speak. Don't forward. Hold on, do your research, check with people of knowledge, and then convey it. There's nothing wrong in saying Allahu Alam. Because that's a fact. That is haqq. Allah knows best. You and I know only knowledge which we have been given, which is a small percentage. Some more examples from the hadith in the Quran about people who do not want to do dawah for various reasons, right? Like we said, some reasons are, friendship will break and my cousin will stop talking to me and blah, blah, blah. The famous hadith of Rasulullah about the ship decks, Rasulullah, like we said earlier, this is again one of the examples in dawah of using different mannerisms. So in this case, Rasulullah, he gave an example of a ship, of a boat, which has two decks. One is a lower deck, slightly under the sea, because as we know, when a boat sails, a portion of the boat at the bottom is actually under water level. And on the top, you have the upper deck. So there were two decks. The people on both the decks were traveling in the boat. Rasulullah said, there was drinking water was available on the top deck. So whenever the people in the lower deck, they wanted water to drink, they had to go up and they had to bother the people on the upper deck, request them for water and drink the water. Wada, clear, time. So after a while, the people on the lower deck, they thought, this becomes a problem for our brothers on the top. Every time we have to bother them for water, every time we have to, request them. It's not very nice. So one of them said, he had an idea. He said, let's make a hole in the boat. Because there's water all around us. So the water will come in and we can drink from here. Why should we go up and bother our people on the top deck? So all of them in the bottom deck, they liked the idea. And the person started to make a hole in the boat. The people on the upper deck, they saw this. If they had kept quiet, what would have happened? Everybody would have died. The whole boat would have capsized, flooded with water, sunk, and everybody would have died. The people on the top deck, they shouted. They stopped their brothers from the bottom deck to do this. They said, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy? You're going to sink everybody. So you see, that's the point, brothers. That we don't want the rest of the humanity to go into hellfire. Just because we are guided or we think we are guided, we think we may have a chance or shot at Jannah, it doesn't mean we don't care about others. If you don't care, everybody will go down. Because eventually, when two people live together or interact with each other, either A influences B or B influences A. So if a brother has, let's say, a Christian friend or a Hindu friend, and he likes him very much, they have the same tastes, same likes, they like the same, food, whatever. Their neighborhood is the same, they live next to each other, they went to the same school. So this person now, he should not want this person to go to hellfire. The problem with us, brothers, is that many of us do not know that we have the truth. This is the major, fundamental, and the biggest problem we have. We ourselves, we don't believe that we have the truth. We ourselves, we don't believe that Islam is the only deen. We ourselves, we don't believe that Islam is the only way to Jannah. Many Muslims have doubts. Maybe the Christians will also enter Jannah. Maybe the Jews, the Hindus, they seem to be so nice. Maybe they will also enter Jannah. No, ya Shaykh, absolutely not. As Rasulullah said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we'll see this hadith later on as well. Even if Musa alayhi salam was alive, he would have no other option except to follow me, to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So once Rasulullah was sent as a prophet and messenger, there is no other way to Jannah. It is only the way of Rasulullah sallallahu, that is to become a Muslim. The other example in the Quran is about Bani Israel and the Sabbath. Again, an example, a fantastic example of da'wah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, meaning of which is, ask them, that is, ask the Yahud, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ask them about the people who lived by the river. So the tafsir of the ayat is that there were people, groups of people from Bani Israel living alongside the river. And in those days, if you have a river, you want to live next to it because you have water, source of water for farming, cooking, drinking, and all that. Yeah. So, and they would fish in this river. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a test for them, He prohibited them from fishing on the Sabbath, Yom Sabt, no fishing. And He commanded the fish, because everything is the soldier of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fish, water, everything is the soldier of Allah. He commanded the fish for every day to go fish, to swim at the bottom of the river. Only on Yom Sabt, He commanded the fish to come to the shallow part of the river, to come up. So the Bani Israel, the people, they would throw their nets every day and come back empty-handed. And on Yom Sabt, they see all the fish in front of their eyes, right in front of them, swimming on the top, but they can't fish. So a group of them, they had an idea to work around this so-called problem. So they said, let's put our net on Yom al-Jum'ah. And Yom Sabt, when the fish come on top, they will get caught. And we pull out our net on Yom Ahad. So technically speaking, we are not fishing on Yom Sabt. We're still following the command of Allah. This is exactly like what we do, brothers. Why is Allah mentioning this in the Quran, brothers? Because we have the same problem, you and I. Riba is a good example. So, yeah, Sheikh, yes, riba is haram, but this is mortgage, this is profit rate, this is madri shoyani, this is this, and this is that. Oh, khamar is haram, but this is whiskey, this is gin tonic, this is brandy. It's not khamar, it's brandy. We are doing the same thing. Exactly the same thing. So this group wanted to do this. Another group of the people of Bani Israel, the Bani Israel, they warned them against it. They said, no, this is wrong. Fear Allah. They made da'wah. And there was a third group who just kept quiet. They didn't really care. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the first two groups. He saved the people who did da'wah. The people who had this idea and put their nets on Jummah and took it out on Ahad, he converted them into pigs and apes. Instantly. So 1 minute they're humans, the next minute they're either a pig or an ape, monkey. The third group which kept quiet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not even mention them. You can see the importance of da'wah, brothers. To save ourselves on the day of judgment, to save ourselves from the wrath of Allah and the punishment of Allah, we have to do da'wah. Barakallahu feekum. Okay, let's stop for now here. Somebody had a question. I remember someone raised a hand earlier. If you have any questions, otherwise we can continue.
Assalamu alaikum, teacher.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Teacher, you gave us an example of somebody who is smoking in friends and then he offers them cigarette. So he's asking them to do something bad. This is against dawah, right? So my question is, even if he's only smoking in front of his friends or any other people, isn't it also a negative dawah? Just doing smoking, not offering cigarette, just doing smoking.
No, of course. So I think what the brother is trying to say is that just by smoking in front of others who maybe don't smoke, he's trying to invite them to smoking. He's trying to show them how nice it is, how cool it is, how hip it is, how the in thing it is, all kinds of nonsensical stuff. Yeah, and even the advertisements, when you see these Marlboro ads and the cowboy man, and everything is made out to be so nice, so attractive. So the calling to evil becomes very attractive. So yes, even that is of course wrong. But my example was with the respect of the good being cascaded and the evil also being cascaded. That was the point. Now, barakallahu. Anything else? Any other questions? Right. Okay, let us quickly finish the next slide if possible, and we can continue next with otherwise. So we've been talking about guidance, right? Many times we talked about guidance from Allah and guidance has to come and so on and so forth, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, referring to guidance in the Quran, he says in this ayat that verily you, Ya Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, guide not whom you like. This is Surah Al-Qasas, ayat 56. That you, Ya Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, guide not whom you like. And this was revealed, scholars say, when, as we saw in Sirah, his uncle Abu Talib passed away, and he was trying his best, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to make him Muslim. And Abu Talib died as a kafir. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed that you do not guide whom you like. It is Allah who guides. And this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran as well, and verily you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are indeed guiding mankind to the straight path. Ash-Shura, ayat 52. So in one ayat, Allah says, you cannot guide whom you like. It is Allah who guides. In the next ayat, in Surah Shura, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you are indeed guiding to the straight path. So, at the face of it, someone who doesn't understand or not perceiving the Quran correctly may see that there is a conflict between these two. There is no conflict, of course, but how do you explain these two ayat? How do you bring them together? Does anyone know? Please raise your hands if you do. Do not speak out of turn. Barakallahu. Brother Muhammad Narwin, tafaddal.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Those who have been written in destiny to be guided will accept Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's guidance. Hence, he will be guiding those who have been destined to be guided.
Okay.
But those whom Allah Subhanahu wa Taala does not want to be guided, He
Okay.
cannot guide them, because even if He does da'wah to them, they will not accept it because it is not there in the qadr qada.
Jazakallah khair. Okay. Anyone else? Barakallahu feek. Okay. So your explanation is good, but the more correct or the more stronger explanation for this from the scholars is that there are two types of guidance. And that's what I want to highlight, and especially for in the field of da'wah. The first one is what we call hidayah tawfiqi. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you do not guide whom you like, it is Allah who guides. This is hidayah tawfiqi, which means it is tawfiq to the heart of the person. It is Allah who opens up the heart. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot do this. No du'at in the world can do this. If somebody thinks he can do this, this is an act of shirk. It's an act of shirk. So this tawfiq is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second hidayah is the hidayah which we call hidayah irshadiyya, which is showing the way, the correct direction. That is our job. So da'wah is split into two. Our job is the second ayat there, that we show the proper way to the people. We clarify their questions. We remove the obstacles. We answer their questions and so on and so forth, and give them the right Islam. After this, it is up to Allah. Tawfiq. This is where we stop. That's a red line. We cannot cross that line. We cannot force a person to become Muslim. La ikrah fid deen. We cannot do this. So what we do is hidayah irshadiyya. And hidayah tawfiq, the softening of the heart, the opening of the heart, is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a da'iyah thinks he can do that, if he thinks people are becoming Muslims in huge numbers because of his programs, his durus, his da'wah, he is committing an act of shirk. So this is very important. We'll touch upon this even next week, inshallah, as we continue. We want to stop with this. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.